So I received these books, and I don't really have anyone in my real life who would get super excited about these with me. So my next logical conclusion was to film and upload a YouTube video to strangers on the internet. If you're not familiar with Book Outlet, it's the most amazing website where you can buy overstock and slightly damaged books for a fraction of the price. So this is the most low-budget production ever. You can see so much crap in the background. This is a new bookshelf that I need to put together because this one is getting too small. You can see the books are on the floor. The first book I got is Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. You probably heard of this book and this author before. She wrote Little Fires Everywhere. It's a novel that was adapted into a HBO show, I believe, with Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington. I think she wrote this book first, but I haven't read it yet. So this takes place in the 70s in Ohio. It's about a Chinese immigrant family with 3 kids, where Lydia, the middle child, is the golden child. She's the favorite. The parents have so many hopes and dreams and aspirations for her, kind of like a proxy for all the things that they never achieved. They want it all for her. And one day, Lydia is discovered at the bottom of the lake, basically, dead. And what I expect of this book is a whole backstory of what happened to Lydia. Was it suicide? Was it murder? Probably a lot of secrets that get uncovered and things that each and every family member is hiding from the others. I imagine that this book will also touch on the topic of how the family members as Chinese immigrants fit into the small town society that they find themselves in. I have another hardcover. This is Red Sister by Mark Lawrence, completely different direction. This is a fantasy book. I believe it's from the Ancestor trilogy. And this book is about killer nuns. We have our protagonist Nona, who at the age of 9 comes to this convent of sweet mercy where girls are being taught how to be killers. She is covered in blood and is accused of murder as a child. And that is all I know about this book. I don't want to know any further. I usually try to go into a book knowing as little as possible. I heard amazing things about this trilogy though. That is why I picked it up. I think it's quite bloody and violent and gruesome. And paired with killer nuns, badass girls, I think that's very interesting. The next book is also a fantasy, which I am very excited about this one. It's The Last Wish by Andrej Sapkowski. So this book series is the base for the very, very well-known game The Witcher, which I think has multiple installments. So I did play this game on Xbox for just a little bit actually, because my boyfriend has it. But I think the main thing I did was running around and I think swimming away from sea creatures, but that's it. I'm not a gamer. It didn't really hold my interest, but I loved the Netflix show with, what's his name, Henry Cavill. That show really sucked me in. I enjoyed every single episode. It was so much fun to watch. It was quite funny, but very action-packed. I cannot wait for season 2. I might actually rewatch season 1 again. But what made me very interested in reading the series is a quote that I found on Wikipedia from the author. Let me just pull it up. So what he said is, I believe that the feminine element dominates in nature. Women are generally stronger than men. All power in this world should be in the hands of women. So that is a very, very bold and interesting statement. And I was just really surprised by this quote because I learned about The Witcher in the context of a fantasy video game where female figures are overly sexualized. But then if you look at the TV show, yes, there's a lot of sexy, steamy moments, but yeah, there's a lot of badass female characters in that one too, like Queen Calanthe. I think she was my favorite character. She did things that maybe are not all very good, but in general, I did root for her. This takes place in a fictional fantasy world where we have Geralt the Witcher. He is an assassin and monster hunter, I believe, with magical abilities. I am not sure what exactly this book covers in relation to the show, but nevertheless, I want to read this before the second season comes out. And really looking forward to how the female characters are written in this book. I obviously now expect a lot from the author, so we'll see. Next I have what I like to call a palate cleanser. I think this is my first adult romance book. I picked this up because I think I saw a few very favorable reviews and it was on sale. This book is about Kristen, who's helping her best friend plan her wedding whilst being in her own tragedy, because I believe she has learned that she needs some kind of medical procedure that will hinder her on having her own children in the future. So she's kind of dealing with those things, and then she meets the best man at her best friend's wedding, which obviously there's going to be a connection. They're probably going to fall for each other, but then she learns that he really, really wants a huge family in the future, so how's that going to work out? If I have to take an educated guess, they're probably going to end up together. They're probably going to work through everything. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Probably going to pick this up in between reading super heavy science fiction and fantasy reads, or when the mood strikes for something more lighthearted and sweet and romantic. Next we have Quite the Hefty Boy. It doesn't look like it, but it's one of those 1,000-page books that has the thinnest pages. It's The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follet. This is a well-known, well-loved historical fiction bestseller. It takes place in 13th century England, where a monk suddenly has the task to build a Gothic cathedral. Just a few weeks ago, I was reminded of how much I enjoy historical fiction, especially the one that is set in England, where you follow characters over decades and see how they grow up, how they become adults, what they do with their lives, and usually you see what they do in their profession, but also how their personal relationships evolve, all of it in the setting of a very far away time. I think the last one that I read was set in 14th century England, so this isn't too far off. I think this is a century before this. When is this? Oh, sorry, this is 12th century England. So I'm very, very much excited to dive into this book because I think so far I've only read historical fiction from German authors, so this is going to be an interesting one. Then we have yet another, a very well-known, well-loved novel by Graeme. It's The Rosie Project. Who do we follow? Don Tillman. Yes, Don Tillman. He brings to life the Wife Project, where he puts together a 16-page questionnaire, a scientific-based questionnaire to find the perfect woman. He comes across a girl named Rosie, and she's on the hunt to search for her father. So they're following two very different intentions, but their paths cross, and I imagine that they start to develop an interesting relationship with each other. Of what kind, I don't know yet, but let's find out. It looks like a very short read. I heard from people in my real life that they really enjoyed this book, so that's why I picked it up. I also picked up this coming-of-age novel. It's called Albatross by Terry Fallis, who is, I believe, a Canadian author. So we're following, who do we follow? Adam. I never know their names. Adam is a regular high school student. He's your average boy until he meets a Swedish professor who created this method of measuring one's body and based on that being able to tell on what sports a person would be able to really excel in. Andy finds out that based on his body measurements, he would be an amazing pro golfer. Based on this knowledge, he goes off and starts a career as an amazing pro athlete. But he also discovers that he doesn't really care for golf. He'd much rather be a writer. So based on that, I'm guessing that he has to decide on whether to pursue something he is really, really good at or something that maybe he's not really born to do, but he'd much more enjoy it. I have absolutely no interest in golf. I've never watched a golf game or played it. Nevertheless, this sounds very interesting. Then I have this book, which I am truly, truly excited about. It's The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. We follow Anna Fox, who lives alone in New York City, and unfortunately she kind of has a drinking problem. And one day a new family moves in across the street, a seemingly perfect husband and wife with a teenage son. So Anna starts to observe them from afar, and one day she sees something that she's not supposed to see. So based on the unreliable main female character plotline, this is giving off Real Girl on the Train vibes, and I can't wait to dive into this. Then I picked up a book which goes in a completely different direction from The Woman in the Window. It's American Royals by Katharine McGee. I picked this up because I'm hoping to get Crazy Rich Asian vibes from this. Definitely something out of my reading comfort zone, but it sounds like a lot of fun. So in this fictional universe of our world, there is a royal family in the United States, and we're following the members of this family with their trials and tribulations, I think mostly their love lives. What I'm hoping to get from this book is pure escapism. I want romantic star-crossed lovers, first world problems, ostentatious houses and jewelry and clothes. I believe this is part of a series, but I just ordered this first one because it was on sale. And also, I'm usually hesitant to buy multiple books in a series because I never know if I actually want to read on. Then I got 2 Agatha Christie novels, which I'm very excited about because I really got into reading her books last year. The first one is Murder on the Links, which is a Hercule Poirot novel, which I really like his storyline and his mysteries. I'm reading them out of order because I don't think it's really necessary to follow a certain order because it's always one book is one new mystery. In this story, he travels to France where a dead man is found on a golf course. And shortly after that, a second person is found who was murdered the same way as the first victim. This one is A Murder is Announced, a Miss Marple mystery, which is a first for me. I haven't read any Miss Marple mysteries yet, and I don't know what to expect. I don't know if the style is going to be very different from the Hercule Poirot mysteries. I have read And Then There Were None, which doesn't feature any of those characters, which I have to say I think I prefer the Hercule Poirot ones. And in this story, a murder is literally announced in a journal before the actual murder occurs. And on the day of the murder, suddenly all the lights go out, you hear a gunshot, someone is dead, so what happened? Very much looking forward to these. And lastly, I got a book that is not on my TBR, which could be a big miss for me. For some reason, when I go out and buy books spontaneously, they're usually meh or not really my thing. It's a short story collection called Hungry Hearts by different authors. This is a double hit or miss for me because I haven't read a short story collection yet, which I really enjoyed. Follow a bunch of different characters on different paths and journeys in their lives, but what anchors these stories is that they all revolve around food, like a dish or a restaurant. So that sounded very interesting to me and kind of a cool concept as a food lover, and I love baking, I love cooking, so I think this might be really good. So I'm excited to dig into this. That's it for this book haul. I'm sorry if the frame kept changing because my phone kept running out of battery and also out of storage, so I had to go and keep deleting apps of my phone in order to finish this video. So you can subscribe if you want to. Do give me a thumbs up just for me to know if this video was okay or not. So I guess see you next time.